0. Ignition. Liftoff.
All right, liftoff and the clock is starting. All systems are go.
Surgeon, go. Capcom, we're go for landing.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Straight up into the sky. What an unbelievable sight. I didn't think anything could match an Apollo.
By the mid-2030s, I believe we can send humans to orbit, Mars, and return them safely to Earth.
Hello, everyone. My name is Blanca Pacheco, Mayor of Downey. And today we are here at the Columbia Memorial Space Center located in Downey. And we're having our 10th annual Rocket Fever event, which is a first virtual event that we are holding here at the Space Center. I am excited to see all of you joining us today. I'm excited to see that all of you will be able to participate in engaging conversations with people within the field of rockets and the sciences. So this is going to be an exciting event. I want to thank our sponsors, Estes Rockets and financial partners, for all your support. And I hope everyone has a great time virtually.
Welcome. I'm Nader Moghadam, President and CEO of Financial Partners Credit Union, and also the Chairman of Columbia Memorial Learning Center Foundation. I want to welcome you to this wonderful Rocket Fever this year. It's a little unique in its nature, but it's one that we're proud of sponsoring for the 10th year in a row. What I'm excited about is it's a celebration of great things that have happened in Downey, where imagination of human beings have taken us to the outer space. Very much similar to some of the employees over here at this site of Columbia Learning Center. Once upon a time dreamed about having an organization that would basically provide financing and support to their co-workers and colleagues. 85 years later, that organization is 85,000 people strong and almost $2 billion in assets. So what I'm excited about is that when people have an idea, when people think critically about things, they can dream big and accomplish great things. And I think that's what we're excited about. The youngsters that are at the other end of this camera right now are looking at this and will be going through the event today are going to basically go through a wonderful opportunity to ask questions about our nature, about space, about science, about math, about technology. And I think that all of those things are wonderful because it helps you have a greater, better life and helps you be a more productive resource in your community. So we're excited to be part of this. I commend you for taking the time to doing this and looking forward to a great experience today.
Hello everyone, I'm Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, and I'm so excited to welcome you to Rocket Fever. Today is about opening your imagination, exploring outer space, and learning about all that science has to offer. Last year, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, the moment the world stopped to watch astronaut Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. And since that day, we've unlocked so many secrets of the universe, discovering black holes, finding new solar systems, and traversing the planets with cutting-edge technologies. Each discovery changes the way we understand our universe and teaches us more about ourselves. And each mission succeeded because someone like you set their eyes on the sky, challenged themselves to work hard, and never gave up. Pretty soon, I know we'll all be tuning in to watch one of you walk on Mars or to reach for the stars. And today could be the beginning of that journey. So while you're here at Rocket Fever, remember to learn a thing or two, to get inspired, and to remember that with hard work, there's no limit to what we can achieve.
Welcome to Rocket Fever 2020, everyone. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us today. We have a fantastic day planned for you. My name is Ben. I'm the president of the Columbia Memorial Space Center. I'm going to be your host today. The Columbia Memorial Space Center is a space museum and hands-on science learning center located just a little bit south of downtown LA in Downey, California. And we're going to get into why we're here and all that stuff later, but this is Rocket Fever, which is an annual event that's been happening for about 10 years now. But this is our first virtual event. Obviously, there's some stuff going on means that we can't have big crowds like we usually do. But we're hoping that this is a big crowd out there on the internet, and we hope that you have a wonderful day today. Just want to say thank you to Mayor Blanca Pacheco. She's the mayor of Downey. I want to thank Nader Magadam, who is the president of Financial Partners Credit Union. They are our sponsors today. Thank you to LA Mayor Garcetti for saying a few words about Rocket Fever. Our neighbors to the north are great supporters of the Space Center, and he is the first of several celebrity shout-out guests that are going to be happening today. So just want to let you know, so we were welcomed by the mayor of Downey, and Downey, California has a really storied aerospace history. The Space Center is located on the site where all of the Apollo spacecraft and all of the space shuttles were designed and built. Our site goes back decades, and we are named as the official memorial to the Columbia Space Shuttle. So we have a great aerospace history here. Very proud of it here in Downey and in Southern California. And that's what Rocket Fever is all about, is to celebrate that and inspire the next generation of rocket scientists. We have a fantastic day planned for you. We have wonderful special guest speakers from Virgin Orbit, Aerojet Rocketdyne, Relativity Space. We have space enthusiasts and influencers who are going to be talking to you today. And we also have some fantastic presentations from our Girls in STEM Club. The Girls in STEM Club is a club that meets at the Space Center twice a month, or every other Saturday, basically. We have over 80 girls who are super interested in STEM and science, and right now they've been helping out constructing the rockets and doing some rocket testing. So they'll be talking to you as the day goes on today. By the way, you may have noticed behind me, I am sitting in the Crab Nebula. That's because, you know, it's Rocket Fever virtual, and so we're trying to get social distancing. I know it's supposed to be 6 feet, but we opted for an image of a celestial phenomenon that's 6,000 light years away and 6,000 light years across. I think we are well social distanced for Rocket Fever 2020. I also want to thank Estes Rockets. They are the company that's provided all of the model rockets that we'll be launching today on Rocket Fever. They are the legacy leaders in model rocketry. And again, they put real science, real rockets in your hand. So take it away from this fantastic video from Estes Rockets.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Rocket Fever 2020. My name's Nicole and I am the Education Director here at Estes Industries. I just want to start off by saying thank you to the Columbia Memorial Space Center for putting on this incredible virtual event, getting amazing speakers all together, and being able to share all of our love for rocketry despite many of the challenges that this year has brought for all of us. So today I'm here to bring rocketry education right into your home with an interactive presentation on how Estes model rockets work. So get ready to play along. Welcome to the Estes Rocket Lab. Here is where all of the magic happens. We have an incredibly talented team to bring new model rockets right to your home or even at school. Our kits range from simple rockets like this Star Hopper here, which snaps together in about 15 minutes, doesn't require any glue or cutting, to more complex rockets like our green eggs shown here, which is a lot more challenging of a build and takes a lot longer. We even have an entire product line dedicated to Destination Mars, and this Mars lander is a great example of some of the rockets we have in that product line. So again, we're going to be talking about how Estes model rockets work, and I'm going to be using this rocket as an example. Many of you might have even built this rocket previously as part of the Rocket Fever event, and some of you might have even mailed this rocket back to the Space Center so that it can be launched here today. So this is an example of the rockets that we have, and we're going to be using this to play a game. I'm going to be quizzing all of you to see how much knowledge you have on model rockets. So I'm going to be going over 3 different parts of the rocket, and when I point to these parts, I want you to either shout out your answer as loud as you can, or maybe tell it to your parents, grandparents, or whoever you are watching this video with. So give me a big thumbs up if you're ready to play along. The first part of the rocket that we are going to talk about today is located at the top of the rocket, and in this example it's blue. So if you think that you know what this part of the rocket is, I want you to shout out that answer, and I'll give you 5 seconds to answer it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is the nose cone. So if you guessed the nose or the nose cone, you are correct. Nose cones come in many different shapes and sizes. Each nose cone is expertly crafted so that your rocket will soar up really high into the sky. The second part of the rocket that we are going to talk about today is located at the bottom of the rocket. So here in the example, it's this piece that's red and one white one. If you know what these are called, I again want you to shout out that answer super loud, and I'll give you 5 more seconds to answer. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you guessed the fins or the fin unit, you are correct. The fins provide stability for the rocket after it launches off of the launch pad. The fins make sure that your rocket doesn't wobble or it doesn't flip, so they're pretty important to make sure that your rocket can go as high as possible. You always want to make sure your nose cone is pointed up right to the sky when your rocket launches, as straight as possible. The third part of the rocket that we're going to talk about today is actually located inside of the body tube. So I'm going to use an additional rocket as an example. I've opened up this rocket, and here, if you think that you know what this part of the rocket is called, again, I want you to shout out your answer even louder than you did the last time. And you've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you guessed the parachute or the recovery system, you are correct. The recovery system is put inside the rocket to make sure that your rocket gently lands back down on the ground so that you can launch your rocket over and over and over again. This parachute is an example of a recovery system, and many of our rockets have parachutes in them. But there are also different types of recovery systems. For example, the Starhopper that I showed before actually uses a streamer instead of a parachute as a recovery system. So, those are the 3 parts of the model rocket that we're going to talk about today. Again, we said the nose cone, the fins, and the parachute. These are pretty important to consider because many components of model rockets are similar to actual rockets that we see being launched by SpaceX, Blue Origin, NASA, and many other aerospace companies. For example, SpaceX recently launched their Falcon 9 with 2 astronauts to the International Space Station. Those astronauts were sitting inside the rocket's nose cone in their payload section, and that is again similar to the nose cone that we have here. In addition, after the astronauts completed their mission on the space station, they were launched back down to Earth, and their capsule landed in the ocean. In order to ensure that they landed safely, there were 4 big parachutes connected to that capsule to ensure that the astronauts were safe and that they could return home to their families. So there are a lot of connections between model rockets and real rockets, and model rockets give you an opportunity to think like an engineer and imagine yourself being an astronaut, an engineer, or many other different opportunities in the aerospace world. So you might be wondering, how do the model rockets work? And that's a great question if you were thinking about that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how the model rockets actually work. After you've completed building your rocket, the next thing that you're going to need to do is insert the model rocket engine. So here is an example of an Estes engine, and the engine gets inserted right into the bottom component of the rocket. When you're inserting your engine, you want to make sure the clay nozzle that looks like this is always facing outside of the rocket down towards the ground. Once your engine is tightly secured in and your clay nozzle is like so, you are good to move on to the next step. The next thing you're going to do is take the model rocket starter and you're going to insert it into the clay nozzle like so. And then you're going to take a plug and you are going to put it into the clay nozzle to secure the starter in place. You always want to make sure that your starter is located in between two of the fins so it's easy to hook up onto the launch pad. Now your rocket is ready to be launched. Here is a launch pad. And again, as we note many of the similarities between model rockets and real rockets are launched off of a launch pad as well. Now we are going to attach the rocket onto the launch pad by using the launch lug as a guide so that the rocket can nice and gently glide all the way down onto the launch pad. Then we are going to attach the launch controller, which is this red box here, right onto the rocket itself. So each launch controller has a wire, and at the end there are two micro clips here. You are then going to attach the micro clips to the starter. You always want to make sure that the micro clips are attached nice and tight, and you always want to make sure that they're not touching each other so that they are securely, so that they don't disrupt the connectivity. And sometimes it can be, so I'm just going to make sure that these get on nice and tight. There we go. Now you are ready to launch your rocket. It's really important that after you have your rocket attached to the launch controller that you and everyone in your group stands back at least 15 feet away from the launch pad. This just makes sure that everyone's being really safe. At that moment, when your group is standing back, you are going to take the key that is attached to the launch controller and you are going to insert it into the slot. At that moment, a red light should turn on, indicating that everything is connected correctly. For our example here, there isn't any red light going on because I've actually removed the batteries from this launch controller. I'm inside a building and you never want to launch a model rocket inside of a building. After your key is inserted and there's a red light, you are ready to launch. At that moment, you want everyone to make sure that their eyes are on the rocket, and you want everyone in your group to count down from 5. Since I can't actually launch this rocket in here, we're going to show you a quick video about how a rocket launch actually looks.
2, 1, blast off!
And it's that simple. But there are some of you that I know want to become model rocket experts, and you might still be thinking, I still don't get how it works. So we're going to dive in a little bit deeper on how our engines work, and that will really help you to understand how your rocket actually lifts off into the air. After you hook up your model rocket to the launch pad and make sure everything's connected, you're ready to press your launch button. At that moment, the launch controller is going to send an electrical signal through these wires, up through the micro clips, up through the starter, and they're going to ignite the propellant that is inside the model rocket engine. At that moment, the propellant inside the model rocket engine is going to burn up, and this is going to produce a force called thrust. Thrust is that force that actually causes your model rocket to lift off the launch pad into the air. After all of the propellant is burned up inside of the engine, there is a time delay inside of the engine. This just allows your rocket to continue coasting off of its momentum so it can reach its peak altitude. Peak altitude is also known as apogee, and that's a really important term to remember. Once your rocket hits apogee, the eject... Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Rocket Fever 2020. My name's Nicole and I am the Education Director here at Estes Industries. I just want to start off by saying thank you to the Columbia Memorial Space Center for putting on this incredible virtual event, getting amazing speakers all together, and being able to share all of our love for rocketry despite many of the challenges that this year has brought for all of us. So today I'm here to bring rocketry education right into your home with an interactive presentation on how Estes model rockets work. So get ready to play along. Welcome to the Estes Rocket Lab. Here is where all of the magic happens. We have an incredibly talented team to bring new model rockets right to your home or even at school. Our kits range from simple rockets like this star hopper here, which snaps together in about 15 minutes, doesn't require any glue or cutting, to more complex rockets like our green eggs shown here, which is a lot more challenging of a build and takes a lot longer. We even have an entire product line dedicated to Destination Mars, and this Mars lander is a great example of some of the rockets we have in that product line. So again, we're going to be talking about how Estes model rockets work, and I'm going to be using this rocket as an example. Many of you might have even built this rocket previously as part of the Rocket Fever event, and some of you might have even mailed this rocket back to the Space Center so that it can be launched here today.
I want to thank Estes for that fantastic video talking about their rockets and how they were put together. And thank you, Estes, just for being a great partner throughout all of our 10 years of Rocket Fever. So throughout our broadcast today, our Girls in STEM Club will be showing you all kinds of different at-home hands-on activities that you can do around rockets. So the first one is going to be about chemical rockets, and we are going to welcome Bianca and Luna from the Girls in STEM Club. Take it away, Bianca and Luna.
Hi, my name is Luna.
And my name is Bianca.
We are members of the Columbia Memorial Space Center's Girls in STEM Club.
And today we're going to be showing you how to build and launch a rocket powered by vinegar and baking soda.
We'll start with making our rockets.
To build your rocket, you will need an empty bottle, a cork or rubber stopper, 3 or 4 sticks or pencils, some strong tape, and some scissors.
First, check and make sure that your cork or stopper fits tightly into the opening of your bottle. If it's a little too small or loose, we can just wrap tape around it to make it fit better.
Second, we're going to be taking our bottle and attaching our sticks to make a base for our rocket to stand on. Take each stick and place it on the outside of the bottle like this, making sure they stick out past the end of the bottle. Try to space them out evenly and tape on the rest. When finished, it should stand like this.
Now it's time to add our vinegar and baking soda to power our rocket.
In order to launch a rocket, you need to provide a force to push the rocket up against the pull of gravity. This force is called thrust.
Rockets traveling into space get their thrust from rocket engines burning huge amounts of fuel.
In our rocket, the thrust is going to be provided by the chemical reaction that takes place when vinegar and baking soda mix.
As you can see in this cup, when you mix the two together, you'll suddenly see a lot of bubbles. These bubbles are made of carbon dioxide gas, one of the products of the reaction taking place between the vinegar and the baking soda. Since this is taking place in an open cup, the gas is free to travel up into the air and away.
However, if this reaction were to take place inside of our sealed bottle, what do you think would happen? Without the gas having a way to escape the bottle, the air pressure is going to build up along with the production of carbon dioxide gas. Eventually, the force of the air pressure is going to push out the cork or rubber stopper of the bottle and send our rocket flying into the air. First, we're going to be adding a cup of vinegar to our bottle rocket.
Second, we're going to prepare our baking soda. Grab a small piece of paper towel and lay it out on the table. And now measure out 1 tablespoon of baking soda and pour and pour it onto the paper towel. Roll or fold it into a little packet to put into your rocket to fuel it. Don't put it in your rocket now though. Only use it when you're ready to launch.
To launch, find a nice open space outside. This is going to get a little messy, so I don't think your parents would want you doing this in the house.
Once you have found your spot, place in the baking soda packet into the bottle, put in the stopper, shake it twice, set it on the ground, and run. But you need to do this quickly in order to get clear of the rocket before it launches.
Let's start the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Three, two, one.
Oh my God.
3, 2, 1.
Think we could get our rockets to fly higher or launch faster? We can do so by experimenting with our fuel formulas to find out.
You can try adding different amounts of vinegar or baking soda and record the results.
For one trial, you could keep the amount of vinegar the same at 1 cup, but try adding more baking soda, like 2 tablespoons instead of 1.
For a second trial, you can keep the amount of baking soda the same at 1 tablespoon and add more or less vinegar, like 2 cups or just half a cup.
You can record your results by watching how high or how far your rocket travels, or by measuring the amount of time it takes for your rocket to launch after adding the baking soda each time.
You can let the Space Center know how high you could launch your rocket at Columbia Space on social media. Hope you have a great time building and experimenting with your chemical rockets.
All right, thank you Girls in STEM Club and Bianca and Luna for that great demonstration of chemical rockets program. You know, Rocket Fever isn't just about rocket launches, it's about talking to the people who actually build and construct and make these things go. And our first special guest today in that is engineer Sandra Velez. She's a retired aerospace engineer who actually grew up just up the road from us here in Southern California in the town of Montebello, California. She now lives in Florida, but she has a storied career in aerospace that she's going to tell you about. She's also been a great friend of our Girls in STEM Club. So I would like to welcome Sandra Velez. Sandra, how you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good, not too bad. It's super hot here in Southern California today. How is it for you?
Really hot. Very, very humid.
What part of Florida are you in?
In Orlando, near the House of the Mouse. Disney.
Oh, House of the Mouse. Very nice. Yeah, I don't know if we can say that whole word on the channel. This is so great that we are able to bring Rocket Fever across the country today. This is fantastic. So I know you've got a lot to tell us. Thank you so much for doing this today. And yeah, I think I'll be back after your presentation to ask you a couple questions. All right?
Okay.
Cool. Thank you. Good luck.
All right. Thanks. So, hi everybody. My name is Sandra Velez, and I am an aerospace and electrical engineer. I grew up in Montebello, California, and yeah, we're just going to get started on my presentation there. It's about STEM careers and what you can do with a STEM career and a STEM education. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. And a big misconception about it is that you have to be good at any of that in order to have a career in it. And I am proof positive that you don't have to be an expert at any of that in order to be successful in a career in STEM, like say for instance engineering, like what I'm doing, because you just have to stick with it, and just have an interest in it, do something that you're very interested in, and it'll come to you. So that's what I would want to impart today. So if we could go to the next slide, then I'll keep talking about that. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about why I became an engineer. And the reason I became an engineer is because of this one particular woman named Sally Ride. She was the first American female astronaut to go into space. She was in a group of six other women that were selected at the same time. She was not the first woman to go into space. That honor belonged to Valentina Tereshkova of the Soviet Union, and that was about 20 years before Sally Ride went up into space. But either way, she was a super important, super influential person in my life. When I saw her go up in 1983 on that shuttle, then it kind of just opened up, it opened up a whole new world for little girls to be interested, who were interested in rocketry and space, and becoming an astronaut. And maybe they thought that they couldn't be that. When I was little, I was interested in planes, and I really liked the way they were, and that they were up in the air, and it was something so amazing to me. And when I was little, the thing that you could do as a girl was be a flight attendant. And so I thought that that's what I could be, was a flight attendant, and I could work with planes that way. But that's not true. It wasn't true when Sally Ride went up, and when there were other women who became pilots that I wasn't aware of when I was little. It was just something so amazing to see that a little girl could do that. And later on, I got to meet her, and she was just so amazing and so down to earth and so welcoming and so, like I said, influential to us. So if we could go to the next slide, that would be good. But yeah, she was the main influence on my life for why I became an engineer, because seeing that she could do it, I felt that I could do it too. And so now we're going into my career as an aerospace engineer. I was a flight test engineer for pilot training systems. What that was is those are systems that pilots use to practice their maneuvers, to practice the hard different things that they have to do, their missions. And what we do is we would create what's called a flight simulator, and have the pilot fly the missions. And if you look up in the corner, it has an arrow. It says, "That's me." And what I'm doing is I'm sitting behind the test pilots in the flight simulator, and I'm giving them direction. I'm saying, come up to this altitude, go down to this altitude, go to this speed, slow down. Walking them through the paces of the different missions that they had to do in order to not only test their skills, but importantly, testing the flight simulator to make sure that it behaved exactly the same way that the aircraft was going to. And I did this for that one is a C-130, and that's one of the world's largest aircraft. It's a big cargo aircraft, but mostly I did it for the F-18 flight simulator. And that's the one that's just below it. It's right there. And then in doing that, I did this all over the world. I did this for the U.S. Navy. I was a civilian engineer for the U.S. Navy, and I did that for 16, almost 17 years. And I went all over the world. I went to Australia, I went to Kuwait, I went to Canada. I did this all over, not only all over the United States, but around the world. And some people were like, do you feel uncomfortable about going to, say, for instance, halfway around the world to do that? And I said, no, because, they're calling me to come do this because I was one of the only women doing the job that I did. And you see the flight trainer for the F-18 is up at the top left corner. And so that's what I did. And I dedicated the last years of that I was with the Navy in advanced technologies, safety systems for pilots, advanced landing systems. So if we could move on, go on to the next page, then we'll keep going for that. And so yeah, it was just several different years that I did this. It was a lot of fun. More than anything else, it was a lot of fun because you're doing something that not a lot of people get to do. And so this is my educational background. Like I said, I'm an electrical and aerospace engineer because one just wasn't enough punishment. I had to go for both. It's, two of the harder ones. And together, what I did is I focused on control systems and dynamics. And that kind of led into what my career was, later on. I also did different projects, like you guys are setting off rockets today. So I did that. I was part of the rocketry club, and I set off with my rocketry group. We did a 12-foot rocket when we set that off when John Glenn returned to space. We set that one off the day before. So that was part of the celebration of that event. And then there was different professional societies that I was involved in school. It helps to be involved in those in order to prepare you for your career later on, is to be involved in that. And then I just to be well-rounded. You want to be well-rounded. You can't just do just one thing. You want to be involved in a whole lot of different things. So I was involved in student government and different things like that. So if we could go on to the next one, and that was at UCF, Go Knights. So that's close by. And the reason I chose UCF is because they have a really good partnership with Kennedy Space Center. So actually, one of my professors was an astronaut, and some of the classes that we took out at the Space Center when we got to take tours and everything. So it was pretty neat. And then this is what you see here. As in my last years of school, I became a NASA intern, which is pretty exciting. And if anybody has an opportunity to do that, just know that that's an opportunity that's out there for you, is an internship. And you can have an internship at a whole bunch of different companies that are out there that focus on aerospace or something else that you're interested in. But this is the one that I was interested in, obviously. So that was NASA, and I got to do propulsion systems. I got to do payloads. I got to do guidance, navigation, and control, all that stuff. So I worked on power systems for the International Space Station. I also worked for payloads for the International Space Station. I did one of my rotations. One of the things I studied was orbiter main engines. That's a lot of fun. And you just saw a tutorial about how to put your rocket together. So just imagine the space shuttle is a big, huge version of that. And the main engines and propulsion system, that's the thing that makes it go. So what you guys were doing in miniature, we were doing, on a larger scale. And then, of course, what they call it, ELV is expendable launch vehicles. Those are rockets. Guidance systems, that's how you steer the rocket. It uses gimbals. Gimbals is a mechanism. It's a piece of hardware that's inside. And the rockets that you guys are launching today, they are unguided for the most part, if I understand correctly. So they're unguided, and they just have the propulsion, and they just go straight up, and they just kind of go off somewhere, and you find them afterwards. The guided system is one that uses this guidance mechanism, what they call gimbals, and they steer, kind of like steering a car, is the same thing for the rocket. And then one of the things that I liked that was a highlight was being involved in the Jet Propulsion Laboratory Genesis mission, which was a mission to the sun. they sent a mission to send a space vehicle that captured particles of the sun radiation, and then it came back to Earth and they captured it. And so these are all just different ways that rockets and rocketry is being used today. Just know that a lot of things that are going on here on Earth, say for instance, investigations or experimentation into things that'll help us here, whether it's medicine, whether it's water filtration or something like that. Those experiments happen up at the space station, and the way to get there is through a rocket. So it's just been a very exciting career for me. It's been very varied. I've gotten to do and see a lot of things. So I just encourage everybody, if you like these things and you're interested in them, just please keep investigating, keep asking, keep participating in events like this, and parents that are watching, encourage your little kids, especially your little girls, to do it, because my parents, they encouraged us, and growing up with my parents are immigrants, and they know that they know that education is the great equalizer for everybody. With education, you can go really far, and in rocketry like this, the sky is not the limit, and the sky is not the limit for little girls. And so that's just what I wanted to share with everybody today.
Hey, well, thank you so much, Sandra, and thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, hopefully that's what we're trying to get across today to the girls and everybody out there who's watching this, that you can do this too. The barriers can fall down. I want to go back a little bit to something that you were talking about, as you were talking about your influences, and your parents really encouraged you. And you got inspired by Sally Ride. Who were some of the mentors that you kind of worked with? Like, how was it to find somebody who could kind of help guide you along this path?
Yeah, that's important, is finding mentors. Where I was working at for the Navy was Naval Air Warfare Center Training Systems Division. We focused on training systems. They're very, very involved and very focused on making sure that the young engineers or the new engineers that come in, that they have a mentor. And so I had a few women engineers that were my mentors that helped me along that aspect. And then I also had male mentors, some of my supervisors and more senior engineers that taught me the ropes and explained the ins and outs of the job and everything. But it's important to reach out and to take on the input that they have. They have a lot of experience. So mentorship is something super important, and that's something that for me, this is my version of mentorship, is to try and encourage younger folks to get involved in this. So that's another aspect of mentorship, is to take it on, and then to what you learn, share it with others.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, we know you because you've been a virtual mentor to our Girls in STEM Club. So really, thank you for that. And I think it's fantastic to see the loop from your parents to sort of your professional guides, and then yourself kind of passing it on to the next generation. That's what we're hoping for. I do have two other questions. So this is from actually David out there. What drove you to continue down your academic path? Like, what kept you going? Because it takes a lot of school to be an aerospace engineer. Well, what kind of spurred you on? I'm sure that there were some bumps in the road, right?
There's a lot of long nights. There was a lot of times when you just don't think that you can handle the academic load anymore. It's a lot of classwork every semester. It does not let up. A lot of folks, they don't make it. Mm-hmm. And the reason they don't make it isn't because they can't handle the material, because it's not so much that, is that they don't have one of the most important ingredients to become an engineer is perseverance, or any of these careers, anything in these fields is perseverance. Is you got to stick to it. There's many times it's going to be tough. There's going to be times when you don't do well on a test, and you think, oh my God, I can't surmount this. But none of that is true. That's just you getting in your own way. We have to stick to it. You don't have to be an expert at this already. If we're all experts, then there wouldn't be a need for science, because the whole thing about science is to investigate things that we don't know.
Right.
If we do it, wouldn't be it. So that's the thing. I mean, these are all things that we don't know, and if it was easy, everybody would do it. Right. But the important thing is to stick to it. That's what kept me going.
And in those times where maybe you feel like you were feeling like you didn't belong there, or you couldn't hack it or whatever, what got you through? Like, besides the idea of perseverance, did you have friends that you could rely on, or people out there that kind of validated you?
My parents instilled in us that we can do anything. Their whole thing was that you don't have to be number one, but don't be the last one. You can do it. You just have to stick to it, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it, because those people are going to be there. Those people are going to. There's as a woman in a male dominated field, there were people that didn't want me around. Didn't think that I could do it, especially doing the work that I was doing with fighters, fighter jets, fighter pilots, that kind of thing. That is not an area that's super open to women. But I didn't listen to any of those people. I didn't bother with them, because they weren't living my life. I was living my life, That's awesome. And I was in somebody that I went into the Air Force when I came out of high school, and I'm not recruiting anybody. But that was just a path that I took, and I was a cop, and I was the only woman always in what's called a flight in the Air Force. It's kind of like a platoon in the Army. Maybe some understand it better that way. But I was always the only woman, because again, it was a male-dominated field. I was, machine gun, carried a machine gun for 4 years. It's not something that's typical for women. Sure. So I have always not listened to people that told me you can't do something. I'm like, oh yeah, really? Watch this. I can do it.
That is inspiring words to live by. That's great. All right. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was saying my instructors in the Air Force, they were also, you're a woman and you're going to be taking a lot of flack, and you need to be confident in yourself. You need to be better at this than the guys. And it's not fair, but nobody said life was fair. And so you just have to stick to it. And that was the other thing. They kept just saying, stick to it. Because the only one who can tell you can't do something is yourself. And that's not a good word. That's not a good place to be.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. That's getting at the heart of what we're trying to do here with Rocket Fever and with what the Space Center tries to do. One last question before we move on, and it goes back to the 12-foot rocket, because this is Rocket Fever and we're launching rockets that are maybe 8 inches. How high did your 12-foot rocket go?
I don't even know. I don't even remember. But what I do know, and what I can tell you, is that we had to let not only the FAA, which is the Federal Aviation Administration, we had to let them know, but we also had to let the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms know, because of the amount of propellant, the amount of chemicals that are being used to send this 12-foot rocket up. We had to let all these agencies know what we were doing, so that they didn't think all of a sudden something weird going on. And so we had to let them know. But we did have telemetry on it. We set it up with a payload. We set it up with a little electronics package is what a payload is. A little electronics package that told us where it was going. But I can't remember.
That's all right. That's all right.
I know we had to notify special people to let them know that it wasn't something weird.
How much fun was that?
That was a lot.
Well, hey, thank you so much, Sandra, for joining us today, all the way from Florida. And hopefully your air conditioning is running. And and really, thank you so much for everything you do, just in general in your career, but also thank you for helping with our Girls in STEM Club here in Southern California.
Well,
Next time you're able to visit family back here in SoCal, stop by.
I sure will. Thanks for everything. Thanks for having me, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your Rocket Fever Day.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Our Girls in STEM Club is going to do another video. They'll be teaching about making straw rockets. I'm going to introduce Matt Weirman. He's from Virgin Orbit. He is a senior propulsion engineer. So basically, he specializes in getting those rockets into space, all the fiery stuff at the bottom of it. So Virgin Orbit, by the way, also a great friend of the Space Center. They are located just about 7 miles south of us in Long Beach, California. They are actually building rockets as we speak that are going to go into space and sort of push small satellites into space. And Matt's at the top of it. Actually, maybe his work is literally at the bottom of it because it's the propulsion end of the rocket. But he's on top of everything that's going on, all the latest space news, and super excited to welcome him here. So Matt, take it away.
Thanks, Ben. Good to talk to you all today. And in fact, you could say my work is at the bottom because two of the components that I personally designed are the farthest back parts of the entire rocket. So yeah, I do make up the back of it. Like Ben said, I work at Virgin Orbit down in Long Beach. It's actually a dream job of mine. I grew up in Central Florida, where the last speaker lives right now, and I got to see shuttle launches from my front porch. I was actually there on the beach at Cape Canaveral watching the final space shuttle launch. And I knew from a very early age that I wanted to work in aerospace engineering. So I went to school. I went to Caltech out here in Pasadena, California, got my bachelor's degree. And then I knew that I really enjoyed school, just loved school. So I went and got my master's, my PhD. So that meant that I really just dove very deep in the studies of aerospace engineering, into rocket flight, rocket propulsion, and then into rocket engine design, which is what I get to do every single day at Virgin Orbit. I've designed with the team together at Virgin Orbit of about 700 people, my parts for the engine, and then also I am heavily involved in testing rocket engines. We do a lot of testing on the ground to ensure that once we release our rocket, that it's ready to fly. We don't get to test lots and lots of rockets. We want to make sure everything's understood before we drop it. So we're gonna get right into it. Let's go to after that first slide there. All right, so that's our launch pad. That plane that we call Cosmic Girl, it's very different than the way that we launch other rockets, which is from a launch pad, say out here in California at Vandenberg Air Force Base, or at Cape Canaveral Air Force Base in Florida. those are all based on the ground, launching from almost sea level up to space. We instead carry our rocket aloft on our floating flying launch platform, which is a Boeing 747, and we drop the rocket. That means that we can fly from anywhere in the world and do a launch. We can launch from Mojave, California, from Guam in the South Pacific, from England, from anywhere that has a runway that supports 747, we can launch. All right, let's go on to the next slide. So who we are. So you can see it zoomed in right there. You see our rocket when it's still attached to the plane. And then on the right side, you can see that's from our actual first launch. Back in May, on Memorial Day, we attempted our first launch, which was, it wasn't the full success that we expected it to be. About 3 seconds after ignition, which is the moment you see right here with the fire coming out of the rocket, we actually lost the mission. We had what we appeared to be a liquid oxygen leak inside the rocket. It shut down, and that was the end of our mission for the day. However, we learned a ton, and that's an important thing about being an engineer, recognizing what you can learn not only from success, but also from failure. So since then, that was end of May, we're now in the middle of August. We've learned more of what happened. We learned how we can fix it. We've tested ways that we can fix it, and we already have the best ideas we can put together for how to fix it for our next flight. And we were able to do that entirely without recovering any parts of that rocket that failed. We did it through data by actually understanding the pressure sensors, the temperature sensors, our flow rates, our flight path, all of that great data we were able to process and learn what happened on this, so that the very next day we knew basically what had happened. And then within a couple of weeks, we learned more of what happened and how we could fix it. And now we're gonna go for the end of this year. We're looking to get another rocket flight. Let's go with the next slide. So our rocket, Launcher 1, is meant to launch small satellites, things about the size of your refrigerator. Not the big things that you'd launch on, say, a Falcon 9 or an Atlas V, but small satellites. You know, many of you are watching this on your phones, your iPads, your computers. Those are more powerful computers than we ever used to go to the moon. So we can launch things like GPS satellites, space-based internet, Earth orbit imaging satellites, ways that we can better understand our planet and improve communication between all people. At Virgin Orbit, our big slogan is that we boost imagination and that space is for everyone. We want everyone to be able to have access to space. Let's go to the next slide. So that's our Launcher 1 rocket right there. If you want to look all the way to the bottom left, you can see a bit of the engine nozzle skirt for the engine that we call the Newton 3. That's actually the part that I get to work on, is that big boost stage engine, the very first stage engine. It flies for about 3 minutes and then it falls off because it's all empty, it's used up, and then the second stage flies for about 6 minutes, and then we've delivered that satellite to orbit. It's expendable, which means we use it up. It's one-time use. It uses LOX RP. LOX is a shortened way of saying liquid oxygen, because of course there's no air in space, so we have to bring our own oxidizer for the fire with us. And RP, which stands for rocket propellant, which is kerosene. It's sort of like the stuff you'd put in a gas-burning car. It's about 70 feet long, which is not the largest rocket in the world, but we're looking for responsive launch, small satellite launch. And that's just the right size for that. Let's go to the next slide. Here's another look at all the things that go in. I'm just a propulsion engineer. If you look in the top right there, you can see a Newton 3 hot fire test. That beautiful fire flowing out of the engine, but that's only one small part of it. We also have GNC and avionics. That's guidance, navigation, control, and avionics. Those are our computers. That's how we control where the rocket goes, where it points, where it steers, how it interprets the data that it's generating itself. The whole big white thing that's covered in, that's a structure built of composite materials. It's sprayed on with a foam to insulate the propellants that we have inside. And there's our factory. You can see in the middle, in the picture, that little bubble there. That's our factory in Long Beach. We build it all there. There's about 700 people that work in Long Beach and Mojave together, where we have our test site. And every one of us is necessary for getting our rockets from the ground to space. People that sell it, people that build it, people that design it, the people that test it, people that check it out. There's people from all sorts of backgrounds, PhDs like me, people that have bachelor's degrees, people that have like technical backgrounds, like welders and builders. We need all sorts of people to be able to launch things into space, and everyone can be a part of it. That's pretty much everything I have to say about Virgin Orbit right now for you all. It's an exciting place. It's definitely like my dream job. I dreamed of doing this since I was a little kid. So it's exciting that I get to go to work every single day to enable greater access for people to space.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you very much. And that's great. I'm glad that you talked about how you've been inspired to do this since you were a little kid, because we actually have a couple of questions from kids out there. So Barbara Snyder, who I'm assuming is speaking for someone, because the question is, we have an eager young learner with an intense draw to the unknown. Any resources you would suggest for young kids to focus on to support their natural curiosity of aerospace engineering? I want to meet this kid, by the way, who has a natural curiosity for aerospace engineering. That's very specific. It's great.
Oh, I love it. And I find kids having great natural curiosity for everything because they just want to learn. And that's a beautiful spark. I'd say one of the best things is this is almost cliche, but like your local public library. There's so many books there. I remember when I first fell in love with space, I read every single book that I could possibly read in the library on space exploration, including one that I found that was about the moon's geography, published in 1965, before we had any real pictures of the moon, and it had mountains on the moon, which the moon doesn't have mountains. So that was really hilarious looking back. There's also just look for opportunities to see and touch things in space. I'm a rocket scientist. I love talking about it. It's really easy to find people that work in aerospace that want to talk about it and share their own experiences. I had the blessing of, when I was a kid, of living near where aerospace engineering was taking place. I could literally look out the front window of my house during a space shuttle launch and see it. When the space shuttle came to land, I could hear that sonic boom.
Oh, jeez.
And it was just one of the coolest things in the world. My dog hated it. It was just really great to be there and be a part of it, and get to go to places like Kennedy Space Center or like here locally at the Columbia Space Center. I did a Challenger experience when I was a kid, like you all have, and that to me is just one of the coolest things I ever did when I was a kid.
That's right.
Even when I sit on console now for rocket test operations and for engine tests, I still think back to that first time I was sitting on a console, playing pretend, but practicing the things that I do now.
Sure. Oh, that's super cool. And I'm glad you said that. Thanks for plugging the Space Center. I think that for kids in Southern California, there's a hotbed of rockets here. There's, Caltech is, spilling out engineers all the time. Florida is a big hotbed of rocketry, but we probably have viewers right now from all over the place. I think everybody's got a library. There might be some really enthusiastic teacher in town that you can kind of talk to about this stuff. But also, now, especially now that you can't visit like the Space Center or the Kennedy Space Center or something like that, these kind of online connections are out there. Is there any place that you go, or that any sort of websites or anything like that you can say that, hey, public, if you're really interested in space, this is what you should be checking out?
Yes, I follow sites, of course, like nasa.gov. That's NASA's front page of the work that they're all doing. And there's great information there for the general audience, for adults, and even great projects for kids. Another one of my favorites is spaceflightnow.com. They have a long list of all the rocket launches that are coming up over the next year. And I definitely remember the day when Launcher One first appeared on that. And that was a really exciting thing. It's like, oh my gosh, we're on spaceflight now.
Sure.
And they'll usually have a step-by-step, blow by blow of what's going on leading up to a rocket launch. So you can see all the people involved, all the steps that take place. And everyone watching those, the ESSE's model rocket launches. That's pretty simple. You load in the engine, you put the igniter in, you plug it, you put it on, you launch it. There's more to it. Everyone be safe.
Yeah.
But that's a pretty simple step that takes about 2 or 3 minutes to all set up. Our procedure for our first launch was about 72 hours.
Whoa.
Printed from beginning to end. And that's because it takes all those steps to make sure everything is done completely and done right, and most importantly, done safely. If you're all looking for an activity to do that involves space, if you don't have like being near a space center or a space museum, is to build a model rocket. You get to do everything that we engineers and like technicians all get to do all on your own. Doing those sorts of experiments. See what makes it go high, what makes it stay in air long. Those are all the things that I did when I was a kid. There was even one that had a camera in it, and I thought that was awesome. They definitely advanced. When I was a kid, the camera you actually had assembled part by part, and now it's just a small digital camera that sits inside the. So there's all sorts of cool projects that are available to you to play a part in space.
That's pretty cool. And hey, actually these questions are coming. So by the way, thank you for mentioning that you can get your hands on rockets. So all the Estes rockets that we're launching today, those are available online at the Estes website. So the question that I asked you before about, what resources are out there, this is actually a 5-year-old girl who's asking these questions, and it looks like she lives in Long Beach, so she's wondering if she could visit sometime. But her exact question is, how many hours and days does it take to assemble a rocket engine?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Okay, I'm going to go with visiting Virgin Orbit first. We partnered with local schools, colleges, and trade schools to get lots of people, including the Columbia Center, to bring students of all ages and technical backgrounds in to visit our factory. We want us to be open. That's something that I even started and I really championed, because I don't want aerospace engineering to be this thing that's like, oh, I'm not good enough for that. Oh, other people do that. Right. Everyone can have a part in it. And part of it is getting to see it happen with people that you know. And being in Long Beach, you can drive the north side of Long Beach Airport and see the Virgin Orbit logo right there on the building. We're not doing tours right now because of COVID concerns. But my hope is that when things get better, we will resume those tours to get more people inside to see what we're doing. The next question was, how long does it take? It takes a long time. We're always trying to do it in less time. We're a business, so obviously getting launches out, launches done, that's what our customers pay for. They don't pay for us to necessarily open space for everyone and build rockets. They want their satellite in space. Sure. Just like you pay the postal service to mail your mail and mail your packages where you want them to go, that is what you care about. So for us, putting together a rocket engine takes probably about 2 months.
Okay.
Plus or minus a month. We're always trying to figure out ways, how do we do this faster? How do we do it more efficiently while not sacrificing the quality of our builds? It's not just the build, it's also the testing part. And as a responsible engineer for testing, which is what I do, I pay a lot of attention to, okay, how can we make this procedure go faster? How can we improve this step? How can we better anticipate things that are going to fail so we have a spare part on hand and we're prepared for that, rather than say, hey, we need to spare, okay, let's get it from Long Beach. Well, that's 2 hours away, and it might be late, so the crew might not be in to hand the part. But those are all things that we think of logistically to make sure things are ready when we need to test them, and that we also are ready to learn from the data what we need to do next.
Cool.
There's always, we're looking to take it from being a long process to being a shorter process.
That's cool.
I'd love someday an assembly line of rocket manufacture.
I do have to say,
and to actually build off of that, another thing that we're doing is using new technologies, not just being smarter about building things, but we have a building robust 3D printing capability where we are taking parts of components of an engine that would normally be about 10 or 12 parts and tons of fasteners and seals, and making it one single 3D printed part that takes hours to manufacture instead of days of manufacture, assembly, testing, leak checking. It's all one part. Those are all ways that we are improving our process by being smarter and trying new things. Rocket engines honestly really aren't that different than what was built about 70 years ago. And only now with these new manufacturing technologies and new physical understandings are we making them different than that. And that is what will propel us into the future.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, that's the question for 5. I have a super quick question because we're going to have to get to some more rocket launches, but this is a social media handle called I Love Cupcakes, which I had to say on air. Actually, this person is saying, this is so cool. I was wondering how many times you test a rocket before you launch it.
It's a good question. Well, it's really hard to, because we have an airdrop, it's really hard to, drop the rocket and then reel it back into the plane. We don't yet have that capability. So we're kind of like, we're committed once we drop the rocket.
Sure.
But as far as testing goes, we'll generally test an engine anywhere between 2 and 5 times to dial it in, to check its performance. But then we're doing tests all along the way when we bring it back to the factory, when we integrate it with the rocket, when we put the 2 stages of the rocket together, when we ship the rocket up to Mojave. There's tests all along the way. And those are the ways that we build our understanding of a vehicle before we drop it. Because like I said, once we've dropped it, we're committed.
It's gone.
The goal all along the way is to build understanding and to improve safety.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks, Matt. It's been great. It's great to see you again in this COVID time, even though it's virtual. And thanks again, not only to you, but also to Virgin Orbit for maintaining Southern California's rocket supremacy out there. But yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for this. We're going to talk to not 1, not 2, but 3 rocket scientists at one time, all part of the 21st century rocket culture. They're all from Relativity Space. They're an aerospace company that relies on robotics in their manufacture of their rockets. And they're headquartered in Southern California. Again, Southern California is the hotbed of rocket design and research and headquarters. They're actually based in Long Beach, which is just a little south of us, not too far away from our last speaker, Virgin Orbit. And I would like to introduce Josh, Josh Kay. He is a propulsion engineer from Relativity, and Josh will take it away and introduce his colleagues. All right? Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I think we're all pretty excited. I just want to start with sort of introducing Relativity. Like you said, we're a space startup here in Southern California. We're based in Long Beach. And I guess we're just going to tell you a little bit about how we do what we do and what we love about it. So we can go to the first slide, please. I just want to introduce what a rocket is, right? How it works. Essentially, it's a gigantic flying fuel tank. That's really what most of a rocket is. When you look at the body of a rocket, it's just fuel tank. We have fuel, which is like the fuel in an airplane or a car, and then oxidizer, which is because the rocket works in space, you need to bring your own oxygen along with you instead of using the oxygen in the air. Aside from the main fuel tanks, you have engines at the bottom to burn that fuel. You have avionics, which are the brains of the rocket. And the rocket itself has a bunch of different stages, sections that are stacked on top of each other, and they drop away one at a time. And the objective, of course, of a rocket, as I'm sure almost everyone knows, is to deliver things to space. So satellites or equipment, sometimes even crew. I'm going to talk about the engines at the bottom of the rocket, and then my colleagues who you're going to hear from in a little bit are going to talk to different parts of that design. So if we could go to the next slide, please. I want to cover sort of how an engine works. And people have often heard of Newton's laws, and there are 2, but really all 3 are really important to how a rocket works. The third law is one that you've maybe heard of, that's every action has an equal and opposite reaction, is the fancy way of saying it. Basically, all that means is if you push on a wall, the wall pushes back on you, right? And that's the basic principle on which a rocket engine works, is you throw fuel at the back and it pushes you forward. So you can see, like if you were sitting in an office chair on wheels and you sprayed a fire extinguisher, you would spray the extinguishing stuff out one side and it would push you in the other direction. And the other important thing to know about how this works is Newton's second law, which is written as force equals mass times acceleration. And what that really translates to for this is the faster you throw something away from you, the harder it pushes you back in the other direction. So if you were, again, sitting in a rolly chair or standing on an ice skating rink or something, and you threw a heavy ball, the harder you threw that ball, the faster and further it would push you back in the other direction. So basically all a rocket engine is trying to do is to get that to happen, to throw as much away from you as fast as possible. So if we go to the next slide, please. The basic way that you do that, like I mentioned before, you have fuel and oxidizer. Sorry, we're just waiting for the slide to come up. And you put those things into like a combustion chamber to mix it, and then you shoot it out the back with a nozzle. The rockets that we're launching today are a solid fuel, so you have your fuel and your oxidizer mixed together. But usually the way we do this on bigger rockets, although there are exceptions, is you have them as liquids and you try to mix them together. And the faster you shoot them out, as I said, the better it works. And usually the way to do that is by making them get really, really hot and burning and expanding. And the important way you get that done is if you imagine like candles on a birthday cake or something. If you blow too hard, then you blow them out. But if you blow just right, you get the flame to grow bigger and hotter and stronger. So one of the important things we try to do is inject the fuel and the oxygen to make it burn really nicely together. Like when you're starting a campfire and you're blowing on that fire, you want it just right. But if you blow too hard, then it'll be like birthday candles and they'll get blown out. The other thing is because it's so hot, it would actually melt the metal that we use to have the rocket engine. So you actually have to use the fuel to cool the engine. You have lots of tiny, tiny little channels that run through the sides of the engine that you have to build to keep it cool enough with that fuel flowing through. So if we go to the next slide, I can talk about how we actually go about building an engine to do that. And the top pictures that you'll see here are the injectors. So remember, I talked about getting a campfire to blow bigger instead of blowing out birthday candles. The way you do that is lots and lots of little holes. And the way that we used to do that, these photos are from like the Apollo missions to the moon, is lots of little tiny holes that you drill individually, and it takes a very long time. So you see off on the right, I have all the steps that you would use to make a rocket engine the old-fashioned way. The way that we're doing it as a company is we're just 3D printing the whole thing. So instead of having to machine lots of little holes and make lots of different parts to get those channels in the rocket engine so that you can flow the fuel through and cool it, all this complicated stuff, instead of having to do lots and lots of steps with lots and lots of people, basically you can just 3D print it in one piece. And that's basically the whole idea of how relativity works. And now I'm going to give Lauren a chance to talk about how we do a similar thing for the structure of the rocket, not just the engines.
Hey everyone, I'm Lauren. I'm a structures engineer at Relativity Space. And if you don't mind going to the next slide. So Josh gave a really good introduction to how the engines work and mentioned that we have sort of the giant fuel tanks that make up the rest of the rocket. So for a quick overview of that, going from the ground up, we start with a first stage or a booster, which usually has, most times these days, about nine engines at the bottom, which are optimized for propulsion at sea level. And the booster is used to basically take everything on top of it and get it to the edge of space. And then once you get to the edge of space, you then have a second stage, which you'll separate off and sort of throw the booster away. The second stage has usually a single engine, which is optimized for vacuum. And it's designed to, instead of being like really, really good at picking up heavy stuff and getting it to the edge of space, it's designed to, once you're in vacuum, accelerate the payload to the right velocity so it can actually get into orbit. Sometimes you also have a kick stage or a third stage, and that's used for sort of flying control of the orbit and getting it to like a nice circular orbit. And then you have a fairing, which is like a big clamshell you'll see on top of a rocket that then separates. And that's used to protect the payload until you get outside the atmosphere so that the air resistance doesn't destroy your satellite, which usually gets you frowned upon. And then of course you have the payload itself. So everything from the engines up is essentially structures, where structural mechanics is how solid bodies react under loads and pressures, and rocket launch involves a lot of very high loads and pressures. So the challenge is to basically take this giant fuel tank and make sure it doesn't fall apart while you're sending it through this really crazy environment to get your payload into orbit. So the way that we do that, we start by designing our parts, then we analyze them, then we test them, and then we launch them. And we go through that sequence because testing your design by launching the rocket can get really expensive and really messy really fast. So it's important to analyze your parts and show that they work before you actually launch. Otherwise, it just takes a really long time. So if you'll go to the next slide, one of the ways that we do this is by, for example, this is one of our very small printed cylinders. We'll prove how capable our big printed structures are by making small scale ones and then pressurizing them and seeing what kind of pressure it takes for them to burst, and then showing that the pressure at which they burst matches what we analyze them to, and basically saying, the math that we did in advance lines up with what we did experimentally, and that convinces us that our manufacturing processes work, and we're not going to, have a rocket explode the minute we put a couple of PSI pressure into it. Then if you go to the next slide, the other thing that we do for testing, every rocket will get tested before it gets launched, and you can't really simulate the loads of flight on the ground because you have really high accelerations and really high aero loading and a bunch of stuff that's hard to get with a stationary tank on the ground. But what you can do is you take your vehicle and you put it into a big stand that has straps that go around the rocket or a big attachment at the top, and you basically use this huge test stand to apply loads and forces onto the rocket so that you can simulate the loads that you would see in flight without having to actually fly the rocket, and use that to do your final test to show, okay, the way we've assembled this is going to live up to loads that are similar to what it's going to see in flight. And then it's safe to actually put it on the pad and launch it and expect that everything's going to go well. So the final step of this is actually making sure the rocket knows where it's going. And so Khushbu, who's an avionics engineer, is going to take that on.
Hi, everyone. My name is Khushbu Patel, and I am the avionics hardware in the loop engineer here at Relativity. Before I talk more about the role and more about avionics, I just wanted to share a quick background story. So ever since I was 5 years old, I had always wanted to be an astronaut. And being raised in Houston, Texas, I had the opportunity to visit Johnson Space Center many times and participate in STEM-related activities. And this dream of mine continuously motivated me to work hard in school, and it paved way for me to transform my goals and my passions into reality by teaching me skills needed to succeed in the outside world. I've participated in several NASA projects, and there's two that are near and dear to my heart, and one of them is the high school aerospace scholars, where I was chosen by our Texas state senator to participate in a week-long internship at JSC, Johnson Space Center, where we were able to create a mock mission to Mars. In college, I participated in NASA's Zero Gravity project, where I had the opportunity to fly in the Vomit Comet and experience Martian gravity and lunar gravity, which was incredible. And then as far as my career, immediately after graduating from the University of Texas in Austin in 2016, where I majored in Bachelor's of Science in Aerospace Engineering, I worked at an air launch company, which you guys just listened to, which is Virgin Orbit. And I worked there for about 3 years, and now I'm at Relativity. So to give you guys a little bit about avionics. So avionics serves as a purpose of being the brain of the rocket. And the avionics, they're the electrical systems that are necessary for flight, and they're driven by software to tell them where the rocket should go. So if we go to the next slide, I can go into detail of what systems the avionics controls. So next slide, please. Thank you. So avionics, so they tell us where the rocket should go and how it should move its engines to keep us on the correct trajectory. And to achieve this, a spacecraft actually has several brains distributed through its various components. And some of these brains include power management system, data collection, guidance navigation systems, telemetry systems. And if you guys don't know what guidance and navigation and telemetry is, the guidance system has two main roles during the launch of a rocket, and it's to provide the stability to the rocket as well as control the rocket during all these maneuvers that we perform. The telemetry system allows for wireless data transmissions so we can monitor where the rocket is during flight. And all these systems communicate with each other as well as with the spacecraft avionics and command systems. But before we can put these electronics onto the rocket, before we integrate them, we have several levels of testing we have to go through to make sure that they can operate through the harsh flight conditions during launch and when we're in space with system margin. And that's where my role comes in. So I lead the design, the development, and the execution of a test system called Hardware in the Loop. HITL is the most crucial step before you fly, one of the most crucial steps before you fly. And the goal of HITL is to simulate closed loop rocket system with emulated sensors and actuators. These sensors and actuators include temperature sensors, and pressure sensors, so we know how hot parts are getting, and like those are extremely crucial in also helping us like open and close different parts of the gas system. Hit-hole testing, which is hardware in the loop, is also one of the most important tools for avionics, for software, propulsion, the guidance system to come together and really simulate what a full mission trajectory looks like. And it allows us to combine all the hardware and all the software to like for a real-time, like realistic feedback. And it provides all the test coverage we need to make sure that we catch all bugs and help mitigate any risks that would have occurred at the test site and launch site. So that is avionics in a nutshell. And yeah, I think Ellie is the next one to speak as well.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Yeah, so thank you so much for inviting us to speak. I have just a few wrap-up words for a little summary of relativity space. If you want to forward to the next slide, please. So yeah, you mentioned that we're using robotics to help to make the rockets of the future, but we're also actually using the 3D printing method or additive manufacturing, which we think will really help to accelerate the take-up of rocket launch and space exploration as we go into this new millennium. And finally, just want to leave you with a quick video. If you can go to the next slide, please. And we have a video of an example of how we actually 3D print our tank and barrels. And if you want to press the button that says play, hopefully the video will play. So yeah, that's a fuel tank that we printed in 10 days, but it looks like it was really fast. But that's the kind of thing that we're doing with what we call our massive robot, which we call Stargate. And as far as we know, that's the biggest 3D printer in the world. So keep an eye out for Relativity Space, because we're going to be launching rockets using this method very soon.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic. It's so great to see how rocketry is kind of evolving in the 21st century. This is great. And just to follow up on that, the last bit with the 3D printer, you know, the Space Center has some 3D printers, and we've done some hands-on programming where kids are able to 3D print parts of the model rockets, like the ones we're launching today, and set them up in the space. And it's very much inspired by what we've heard you and others doing. How has this 21st century manufacturing techniques really impacted the space race, or the new space race? Is it just about making things cheaper, or has it enabled us to imagine bigger and better, or different things?
Yeah, I think Josh mentioned, the method of manufacturing for engine parts has also simplified, but yet also increased in speed. So it's literally everything you can think of: better, faster, stronger. And that sounds like a Daft Punk song, but that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. More efficiency in every process, taking the speed at which we achieve orbit or get to space and allow our customers to also get to space. Mm-hmm. The whole thing is basically a win-win situation.
I was also struck by your presentation by a couple of things. One, the historic photos, because as we've explained, the Space Center is where the Apollo spacecraft were designed and built. We've got a long legacy of aerospace here on the property we're in. But I was also struck by something that Kushbu said. She wanted to be an astronaut. So did I, and now I'm here at a space museum. How many of you guys also wanted to go into space, not just work on the vehicles that went into space? I can't see you, so I don't know if you're raising your hand. Say something.
So I wanted to be an astronaut really bad, and then I found out I was going to be too tall to fit in the space shuttle.
That's what they told me too.
That dream ended for me.
Yeah, that's what they told me too. I went to space camp and everything in Huntsville, but then I'm over 6 feet. I don't know. I'm hoping that companies like yours, you're really going to open up the opportunities for the tall people in the world. But anybody else? I know that's for a lot of the young people who are watching this. A lot of them, they think about, oh, I want to go into space, but then not realizing that there's all of this other stuff that you can do to be a part of the space program, which is what you're all doing. Yeah. Any of you anyone else wanted to be an astronaut, or have any other thoughts about how you can enter the space program?
I can speak a little bit to that. There's many ways you can be involved if you can be an astronaut, and by all means, please utilize the internet to search for science clubs at your local museums. For example, like the Columbia Space Center has a lot of organizations, like clubs and like online events like this Rocket Fever. At least when I was in Houston, Texas, I signed up for science clubs at my local school. And I also read a lot of books based on space, and I still do that a lot. Oh, nice. So I highly encourage that. I highly encourage watching films that are motivating you to also pursue this career. Apollo 13, one of my all-time favorite movies, The Martian, The Interstellar. And yeah, so definitely encourage all youngsters out there, please like participate in STEM activities. Reach out to your local museums, your libraries, your schools, talk to your teachers, talk to some of us engineers, and we would love to help you and guide you to that path of achieving your goals.
That's super nice. Thank you very much for opening yourself up to being able to connect more in the future with the young people out there. I want to say thank you to all four of you, to Relativity Space. Thanks for keeping the rocket dreams alive here in Southern California. That's super awesome. I want to thank Josh and Lauren, Kuspu, and Eliana. And yeah, we're ready to keep talking to you guys more in the future. And exciting. It'll be exciting to see where Relativity takes us when you guys are starting your launches and everything. So thanks a lot for being here today. Thanks for being a part of Rocket Fever 2020.
Hi, my name is Lauren.
And I'm Camila.
And we're also members of the Girls in STEM Club here at Columbia Memorial Space Center.
And we're going to show you how to build and experiment with straw rockets.
Building these rockets is pretty simple. You can either make your own template or follow the template from NASA's JPL here.
Whether you decide to use template or not, the supplies you're going to need is tape, scissors, a pencil, some straws, and as much art supplies as you need.
I will be making my own template,
while I'll be following the template from NASA.
We're going to start by cutting out the body for our rocket and our wings.
Next, take a piece of paper that is going to be the body of your rocket and wrap it around the pencil like this. We are taping it around the pencil to make sure the body of our rocket is wide enough for our straws to fit into when we're ready to launch.
Once you've taped your body together around the pencil, it's time to add our wings. Tape your wings to the body of your rocket, the end that is closest to the eraser. If you're not using the template like me, you can use as many wings as you want. Now you can decorate your rocket any way you want to. We mostly use tape, but you can use crayons or stickers.
Just like Luna and Bianca told you, our rockets need thrust to go forwards. We're going to be using air from our lungs to push them.
To launch, remove your pencil and insert your straw. Make sure your runway is clear and swallow into your straw for your rocket to launch.
Clear the runway! If you want to make it more challenging, try to find a target to shoot at. Your siblings. Bruh.
Now that we finished our first model, we can see if we can improve our designs and our models with experience.
To compare our rockets, we have to collect data. We're going to launch our rockets and use a tape measure to see how far they go.
We will record our data on this big piece of paper. I'm going to be changing my rocket, and I'm going to be making the nose cone longer.
I'll change my rocket by giving it less wings.
I changed my design by making the nose cap longer than the first one, and I fixed the wings by making them thinner.
My old rocket had 4 wings. My new one had 3. I also made this one tighter in hopes that it keeps more air, which gives it more thrust. You can try to make bigger rockets using straws like this, boba straws.
Let us know on social media at Columbia Space which design works best for you.
Have fun, engineers, and enjoy the rest of Rocket Fever!
Hi, my name is Milena, and I am too a member of the Girls in STEM Club. Today I'm going to show you how to make a balloon rocket at home. Follow me! Unlike the other rockets we built today, this balloon rocket will need a path to fly along. We're going to make a guidance system using a straw to help make sure it stays on course from its trip to Earth to Mars. First, we need 2 chairs representing Earth and Mars. We're also going to need some really long string or twine. Let's tie one end of our string to the Earth chair. That'll be the starting point for our rocket once we're ready to launch. Before you tie the other end of your string to the Mars chair, we need to build our guidance system. Take the free end of your string and pull it through the straw, like this. And keep on going until you see the string coming out of the other end of the straw. Once you've fed your string to the straw, we're ready to tie our other end of our string to the Mars chair, creating the end of our path. once we're finished building our balloon rockets, we will tape it to the straw guidance system and we will launch it from Earth to Mars. All we're missing now are our balloon rockets. Are you ready to make one? All you need for your balloon rocket is, well, a balloon. However, I do want to decorate mine before we start launching it on the path. So I have a clip here, so once the balloon is blown up, I can clip it on so the air doesn't get out while I'm drawing. There are two ways you can decorate your balloon. One, you can draw on a piece of paper, you can doodle on it, and you can cut it out and just tape it right onto the balloon. Or you can use Sharpies or markers and just draw directly on it. Now that my balloon rocket is ready, it's time to attach it to the guidance system. So you only need a little piece of tape, not too much. And you're gonna have the top of the balloon attached up to the straw and tape it like this. Now, when I release the clip, the air used to blow up the balloon will exit out and will give the balloon the thrust it needs to move forward. Let's start the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! 3, 2, 1, blast off! Three, 2, 1, blast off! What other experiments do you think we can do using balloon rockets? What type of data do you think we could collect? How about we use different shapes of balloons? We can record each shape on a data sheet, blow each one up, and launch it, and record how long it takes for our rocket to reach Terra Mars with a stopwatch. Let's launch our first balloon again and record the time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off! Now I'm gonna launch my second balloon. 3, 2, 1. Let's discuss the results that we got. For the first one, this shape was a sphere, and the time it got me to get from Earth to Mars was 2.43 seconds. The second test, or the green bean, the time was only 0.79 seconds. So the green bean was way faster than the sphere. I think the green bean was faster than the sphere balloon because the green bean balloon was more aerodynamic. It had a thinner body than the sphere, so it was able to go through the air faster. What other experiments do you think you can do using balloon rockets? Let us know at Columbia Space on social media. Hope you had fun with all our rocket activities today. See you next year.
Hi everyone, it's Emily Calandrelli, aka the Space Scout, and I just wanted to tell you all to stay curious and keep exploring because science is everywhere and the world is out there for you to discover. Bye!
Thanks again to our celebrity shout out from the Science Gal. You can follow her at Science Gal on social media. I'm really excited. Our last sort of rocket scientist talk for the day will be Sarah Baldwin from the Aerojet Rocketdyne Company. I'm very excited about this because Aerojet Rocketdyne is actually a legacy aerospace company that started right here where the Space Center is. They started as a division of North American Aviation back in 1950 and were part of that group here on site for many, many years. Rocketdyne actually has built, up until the SpaceX launch not too long ago, they built every single rocket engine that took an American into space. That's pretty amazing. I'd like to welcome our special guest from Aerojet, Sarah Baldwin, who is a rocket scientist and is going to tell us more about it. Sarah, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for being here. I know you're based in Southern California, so it's a hot day today, but thank you for joining us virtually. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say because, again, this Aerojet Rocketdyne has a very special place in our heart here at the Space Center because we are on the land that you used to be on. And how long have you been with the company?
So I've been with the company 10 years, and then I interned actually before that. So
cool.
Yeah, it's been a great year.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to hear more and probably ask you some more questions after this, but I know you have a presentation, so take it away, Sarah. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So as you said, my name's Sarah. I'm an aerospace engineer at Aerojet Rocketdyne, and I work on the RS-68A engine, which is the world's most powerful liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen engine, and it actually powers the Delta IV rocket. So my job involves traveling to the launch site and working launch countdowns to make sure that every payload safely reaches orbit. And right now, we're actually working towards a launch in about 2 weeks. Next slide. All right, thank you. So one of my favorite things about working in the space industry, and specifically at Aerojet Rocketdyne, is being able to be a part of space exploration. Our propulsion systems have visited every planet in the solar system and even some asteroids as well. Now, my personal favorite is the Parker Solar Probe, which I might be a little biased about because I helped launch that a couple of years ago. And it's been just so much fun watching it closer and closer to the sun. And eventually it's going to pass within the corona of the sun. And our propulsion systems have actually visited Mars 9 times. And after Perseverance lands, that will be our 10th time onto the red planet. Next slide. Thank you. So there's a lot of really exciting things that are happening in space exploration right now. So I wanted to talk about a couple of them. Starting with the Mars 2020 launch, that's bringing the newest rover Perseverance to Mars. So the rover launched just a few weeks ago from Cape Canaveral aboard a ULA Atlas V rocket. Now, 4 of our AJ-60 solid rocket propellants helped lift the booster up off of the pad. And it may be hard to tell from that photo there, but each of those solid rockets are 55 feet tall. And together, they provided over 1.4 million pounds of thrust. And then after that first stage separated out, our RL-10C liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen engine, upper stage engine propelled Perseverance on its trajectory to Mars. Next slide. Thanks. So let's talk a little bit about getting to Mars. So launching a spacecraft on an interplanetary mission requires really precise timing. Earth and Mars orbit the sun at really different speeds and different distances. So in order to be as efficient as possible and minimize the amount of propellant that we have to take with us, we need to make sure that we launch at a time when the planets are at a good position relative to each other. And this optimal alignment only occurs once every 26 months. So we need to make sure we launch on time. So right now, Perseverance is in its cruise phase. And just yesterday, it performed the first trajectory correction maneuver, or TCM as we call it, to put it on a pathway to intercept Mars. So the next TCM is going to occur in September, followed by 4 others prior to landing in February of next year.
Okay, next slide. Thanks. So now let's talk about getting onto the surface of Mars itself, which is a really cool and complicated process. So during entry to Mars, Perseverance will first eject the cruise stage that used to get to the planet, and then that cruise stage will burn up in that thin Martian atmosphere. And it has a heat shield that will then protect it from the heat of the atmosphere entry, which can get as hot as 3,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Then during that time, 8 of our thrusters will be firing to help stabilize that spacecraft as it starts to slow down. And there's 2 things that slow it down. The first is that the atmosphere itself will cause some friction. And the second is that curved underside of the heat shield will actually cause some lift, slowing it down. And those 2 things combined will slow it down from 13,000 miles per hour down to just 1,000 miles per hour. But that's still too fast to land on the planet. So then it will deploy parachutes that will help slow it down once it's about 7 miles above the surface. And then at that point, it will eject the heat shield. Then about 80 seconds later, it'll eject the parachutes and the back shell as well. And then at that time, 8 of our thrusters will then fire to help push the rover away from all that hardware so they don't crash together. And then finally, my favorite part, which I think is just so cool, is the sky crane. And so the sky crane is also powered by our thrusters, and it will then gently lower the rover down to the surface for a nice gentle landing at less than 2 miles per hour. Now, the sky crane was first used back on the Curiosity mission, and it was a really innovative new landing method. Previous missions had used parachutes, they've also used descent engines, and even these inflatable airbags for a bouncier landing. Next slide. Thanks. Okay, so then let's talk about the mission itself. So once the Perseverance rover is safely on the surface of Mars, it can then begin its roughly 2-year journey to collect samples from the surface. And it's searching for signs of ancient microbial life. And that will help not only explore the past habitability of Mars, but it'll also help prepare for future human expeditions to the planet. So Aerojet Rocketdyne provides the multi-mission radioisotope thermoelectric generator, which we call MMRTG for much shorter, and that will provide power to the rover. And that MMRTG is a nuclear power system, so it converts heat from the natural decay of radioisotope material into electricity. And the first mission to use one of our MMRTGs was the Curiosity rover that landed back in Mars on 2012, and almost 8 years later, it's still going to this day. Next slide. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about getting to Mars, let's talk a little bit about our path about getting humans to Mars. So the first step to getting humans to Mars is actually to return to the moon, and NASA's Space Launch System aims to get us there by 2024. So the 3-day journey from Earth to the moon allows us to practice living and working long-term on another astronomical body before we actually have to commit humans to that really long journey to Mars. And our AR engines, as you mentioned, propelled astronauts to the moon back in Apollo, and we're really excited to be a part of that going forward with these Artemis missions. Next slide. Okay, so Space Launch System, or SLS, will return people to the moon and eventually launch them to Mars. Now, the first stage of SLS will use 4 Aerojet Rocketdyne RS-25 engines, which are actually derived from the engines that were used on the space shuttle. In just 4 seconds, these engines will reach over 2 million pounds of thrust, and they'll run for 8.5 minutes. Now, these engines, they operate in really extreme temperatures, with the liquid hydrogen cools the hardware down to temperatures of minus 423 degrees Fahrenheit, which is cold enough to liquefy the air around the engine. But then once it combusts, it actually runs up to temperatures of 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hot enough to melt steel. And then the AEROSPACE engine will provide the main propulsion once that rocket is in outer space. On its inaugural flight, Artemis 1, it'll have 1 RL-10 engine, which will take an uncrewed mission on a demonstration lunar orbit. And then the second flight, Artemis 2, will carry astronauts on that lunar orbit. SLS will be able to initially carry 60,000 pounds of payload to the moon And then later versions will be able to carry over 100,000 pounds of cargo and crew to the moon. Next slide. Thanks. So right now, we're in the process of preparing to do a full system checkout of the SLS first stage at Stennis Space Center, which is located about 1 hour outside New Orleans. So on October 9th, we're going to do what we call a wet dress rehearsal, where we load all those cold cryogenic propellants into the tanks, and then we perform various test sequences without actually lighting the engines. On October 20th, we'll do a full static fire test, where we actually do run all 4 engines together for 8 minutes to simulate the duration of that launch. And it's really exciting because when we perform just one single engine testing, you have the hydrogen and oxygen combining together, and it makes this really massive steam cloud that's so big it'll rain down on you. But it's going to be incredible seeing all 4 of these engines running together full duration. And I hope all of you can watch the videos of that. Tests like these for me are actually more fun to watch than an actual launch, because you get to see and hear the rocket for much longer than you would during a launch. Next slide. Thanks. So the Orion spacecraft will be capable of taking crews to deep space destinations and returning them to Earth safely. Now, one of the challenges with bringing humans into deep space is the potential exposure to radiation. But Orion is designed to provide up to 1,000 mission-capable days to protect the crew from that radiation. And the Orion spacecraft actually had a demonstration test flight that was nearly flawless back in 2014. And I was actually part of the launch crew that helped launch that on the Delta IV rocket. And we launched it to a peak altitude of 3,600 miles above the surface of the Earth before it came back with re-entry speeds of 20,000 miles per hour before it splashed down in the ocean. So one of the benefits of going back to the capsule design is that it's much easier to separate the capsule from the launch vehicle if there's any emergency that were to occur. So our Aerojet Rocketdyne launch abort jettison motors can quickly pull that capsule away from the hazardous situation, keeping the astronauts safe. And then once in space, our propulsion systems provide the Orion capsule with the primary propulsion power, the steering capability to make sure it's in the right trajectory, and also control to help as it re-enters the atmosphere to make sure that you come in with the right orientation with the heat shield down. Next slide. So NASA's Gateway is another important piece of our return to the moon and to future space exploration. Gateway will essentially be a human space station that orbits the moon and allows astronauts to have a habitable place to stay once they get there. And then having an orbiting lunar station allows for multiple trips down to the Earth's surface and actually going to different locations throughout the surface. And in the future, the Gateway could be a stopping point as you go on missions to Mars or further deep space exploration. Next slide. Okay, so NASA's OSIRIS-REx is another exciting mission that's taking place right now. It was launched back in 2016. It's currently orbiting the asteroid Bennu, and it's going to land on the surface on October 20th to collect samples. Those samples will be returned to Earth for scientific study in about 2023, and it'll help us better understand how planets are formed. Now, just this past Monday, the spacecraft performed a rehearsal of its landing on the asteroid, approaching about 130 feet above the surface. And Aerojet Rocketdyne provides 28 of the rocket engines on the spacecraft, which first slowed it down over 1,000 miles per hour to match the orbit of the asteroid, and then it will maneuver it on and off the surface of Bennu. Okay, next slide. And then as we look forward to deep space further deep space missions, we also need to consider systems that don't rely on traditional liquid or solid chemical propellants, which you have to bring those propellants with you, which adds mass to your launch system. Relying on alternative methods could enable longer duration missions as well. So solar electric propulsion uses solar panels to collect energy from the sun, then it converts that energy into propulsion, essentially converting photons into ions. And that solar electric propulsion is a really efficient way to move through space, but it does have a lower thrust than you would have with traditional propellants, so you travel at a slower speed. So because of that, this type of propulsion would be ideal for transporting cargo or non-crewed missions throughout the solar system. And Aerojet Rocketdyne is currently working on a range of different products that use solar electric propulsion to support our future missions. Next slide. Okay, so another option is that we're working on at Aerojet Rocketdyne is developing nuclear thermal propulsion, which is twice as efficient as traditional rocket engines. Now, nuclear propulsion works by using nuclear energy, which heats that liquid hydrogen, which can then be accelerated to produce these high levels of thrust. Now, the thrust from nuclear propulsion is much higher than chemical propulsion, which makes it an ideal propulsion system for crewed space missions for deep space exploration, because you're traveling at such a high rate of speed. And with your faster journey, you could reduce travel time and also reduce the crew's exposure to that radiation we talked about. Okay, next slide. Okay. And then additive manufacturing, which you heard Relativity talk a little about, we also call it 3D printing, is quickly growing in the space industry. Being able to 3D print your parts for rocket engines not only saves you time, but money, and it also allows you to create parts that are engineering designs that are so complex that previously you were limited by the capability of prior traditional manufacturing methods. So currently we're working on additive manufacturing on multiple products throughout our company, and I'm really excited to see where this technology goes in the future.
All right, thank you very much, Sarah. Thanks for giving us not just sort of a little bit of a history lesson, but also a peek into the future of where you guys are going. It's fantastic. You know, we got some questions from out there in YouTube land, and I did want to ask. Caroline F asked, "Do you get your rocket engines back?"
No, we don't actually. So especially the ones that I work on, the primary focus was to make a very cheap engine. So it's made to be used one time. And so the engine I work on is not, but the space shuttle main engines, a lot of those have seen many, many flights, including a lot of the ones that we've been working on that are going on to the Artemis missions were actually initially shuttle engines that we pulled off the orbiters before they went to the science centers. So what you see Endeavour, that's actually a nozzle on a stick that we put in so that we could keep those engines. And we've been able to introduce those improvements we've been making to the designs. And so those will launch on Artemis and have seen many private flights as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. You know, I get two more questions, actually. There was one from Astra Athens, and how much shorter will a trip to Mars be using nuclear fuel? You had talked about the nuclear propulsion system.
Yeah, you know, I would say with that, you know, if you're going to use a traditional cryogenic propellant, like, you know, the LOX hydrogen, sorry, it's twice as efficient. So I would expect it to be about twice as fast.
Oh, right. So it's a 9-month trip down to 4.5, maybe? Sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be a big improvement for the crew. I'm sure they would appreciate it.
Absolutely. So the other question I have is, Sarah, how did you get into this? You've been working at Aerojet Rocketdyne for 10 years. What inspired you to become a rocket scientist?
You know, I grew up in a really small town in Indiana, and I right near Purdue University, about 2 hours away. And I decided to go to Purdue University, but it just seemed like it was so far away to be a part of the space industry. That's something other people did. I didn't even know how you would get into that. So I decided on engineering and went to Purdue. And once I got there, I found out they had more alumni astronauts than any other school. So we'd be going to class, and Jim Lovell came and talked to us. Neil Armstrong, I saw him on campus my sophomore year. It was really exciting. So once I got there and I met other students, I actually switched into aerospace engineering because I realized it's really not outside the reach for anyone to get into. It's just, you need to know that you can do it. And so yeah, it was just kind of knowing that the opportunities are out there. And I think Purdue really helped me do that.
So when you say that you had to know that you could do it, was that more of awareness that this was something that you could do, or was it something that you felt like you needed to, I don't know, like somebody had to tell you, like, no, sir, you can do it, or how did that work? And what would you say to encourage other young people out there who are watching this?
I would say, just an engineering degree is a great way to start with it. There's a lot of other science degrees, but I would say, yeah, I mean, there's so many companies out here now that there are just a ton of opportunities. So, if you think you are wanting space, wanting to work in the space industry, try some clubs, try, first robotics, try, when you get to college, try a design build test, but really like, there's just a lot of opportunities like to apply for. I didn't even realize how many companies work in the space industry, and even NASA takes co-ops. There's a lot of opportunities for students to break into the industry, and for me, that's how I found out about it. Is I just went out and I applied for an internship, and I was able to get it, and that really was a great foot in the door to, one, see if this is something that I did want to do, and two, just know that it's possible to do. So I would say just, yeah, definitely get a degree in a science field, and just look for those opportunities and apply online, and, apply to those companies. Because, yeah, it seems like it's a small industry, but, there's a ton of opportunity there.
That's cool. All right. Well, thanks. And actually, you being here talking today, I'm sure is being inspirational to someone watching out there. So definitely Caroline F., who asked you the question about are the rocket engines reused. Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you so much for supporting Rocket Fever this year. And also I want to thank Aerojet Rocketdyne very much. Your company has always been a good supporter of the Space Center, because of the historic connection. So thanks, and we're looking forward to seeing you at Rocket Fever 2021 or somewhere else in a virtual world.
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. So we're getting close to the end of Rocket Fever. We have one more sort of celebrity guest. We are super excited to have our last celebrity guest of the day. We have Athena Brensberger, who is a science influencer, someone who you may be following on Instagram at this very moment, who's a big space fan, and we're fortunate to now be a fan of the Space Center and Rocket Fever. We're going to watch a little video. Sounds like Athena was inspired by one of our girls in STEM Club.
Hello, Rocket Fever friends. My name is Athena Brensberger from Astro Athens, and I was super inspired by STEM girls to do my own bottle rocket launch. So I've actually done a couple attempts already, which is why there's stuff all over the place. But I'm going to be doing the good old baking soda and vinegar rocket launch. So let's give this a shot and see how high I can get it. That didn't go that high. Ooh. Okay, that went a little bit higher. Ooh. I went even higher.
Oh, yes, you did it. You did it.
I did it.
Yes, you did it.
Have a good night, sir. Yay! I did it! And I had an audience. Oh, that was awesome. I love New York. I lost one of the landing legs.
All right, that was exciting. That was a great video. So you did a chemical rocket, and you had said earlier that you were inspired by our Girls in STEM Club. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I wanted to really test out the whole vinegar and baking soda bottle rocket, and I really wanted to try and get it super high. And As you guys saw, there was like a huge mess, like just on the ground. There was
That
so
happens.
much trial and error. It happens. The great thing was that I actually had like an audience of like bystanders just walking by being like, yeah, you got this. Just like random people. And I was like, I love New York. This is great.
Well, so we should tell everybody that you were doing that from the balcony of your apartment in New York, right? Because that's where you
Yeah.
are. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Again,
exactly,
extending
yeah.
the reach of the Space Center and Rocket Fever across the country.
Yes, precisely. There was like a bunch of like kids walking by too, and they're like, okay, we're gonna do that. You just need like baking soda and vinegar and like a bottle and cork, right? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, do it with your parents.
That's
Good luck.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, like I
Yeah.
said, we have a couple of questions from Instagram, but I have a question for you. Why are you doing this? Why are you so enthusiastic about space, and how did you start being an Instagram influencer of science?
I mean, I'm excited about space because it's just like, it's epic and it's awesome. And I feel like you don't really have to try hard to express the awesomeness of space.
True.
Like we're literally on a rock floating through space that's expanding and everything is just like moving at really fast speeds. And that's just extraordinary. Like the first time I learned about it, I was 12 years old and got like a book from my best friend Anika, and it was like images of galaxies, and I thought they were paintings. And she was like, nah, like these are real objects with probably like, millions of other planets, and there might be life out there.
Right.
So 12-year-old existential crisis. And I knew I had to go into it, and like went into my research, and then decided I really want to do more communications, and started up Astro Athens and stuff like that.
That's awesome. That's super cool. All right. Well, so we've got a couple of questions from your Instagram followers. We have one. How much would you pay to live in a suborbital hotel?
That is such a good one. That one made me really excited to read, because I feel like just thinking about a suborbital hotel, so like being able to like see Earthrise, being able to just like see the stars without our atmosphere. I would definitely pay I think Virgin Galactic for a flight is like $250K.
Mm-hmm.
So for like a night, I'd be willing to pay maybe like 500,000. That's like a wishful price. I honestly think it's going to be like 1.5 million, to be honest. But I'm just curious, would you do it? Would you go on a suborbital flight?
Oh, I would absolutely go on a suborbital flight and stay up there. I've always wanted to go into space. I don't know if I have the means for a $500,000 overnight stay. So I'm going to say, let's bring it down to $50, $50 a night. And then that's the price point that everybody can go toward.
Yeah, I just realized like saying 500K sounds like super big.
Somebody out there is like, oh, that's how much we could charge. Oh, that's great. All right. So the next question is, can we someday use gravity and electromagnetic fields to travel light years with rockets? So basically, I think this question is all about different propulsion systems.
Yeah, that made me super excited to think about when Sarah was speaking, talking about like nuclear fueled rockets, because thinking about using like electromagnetism, or even say picking up like the speeds around a black hole and somehow being able to escape like the gravity of a black hole and not get pulled in, that I think would help you achieve like more, like definitely light speed travel. But then you would be kind of broken down into like light particles. And so you may, you'll turn into light. You'll be energy. You won't really be physical matter anymore. But I mean, it makes me excited to think about, because that's very science fiction, a science fiction way of thinking. But who's to say that it's not probable just yet?
Yeah, so great. This is kind of a very appropriate way to kind of wrap up the day, right? So here we are celebrating rockets. We're talking from a place that took people to the moon. All of that was science fiction, 150 years ago. And here we are, right? So who's to say that someday the science fiction of today might not become the science fact of tomorrow?
Exactly.
Hey, I just have to say thank you so much for participating in Rocket Fever today and becoming a fan of the Space Center. Do you have any last words to say for Rocket Fever 2020?
Go launch your own rocket. I believe in you guys.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. And can't wait to keep these conversations going more in the future.
Me too. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. So we are getting ready for the end of Rocket Fever 2020 virtual edition. It's been a fantastic day. This is our first big foray out into doing our signature events for a virtual audience or for an online audience. You guys aren't virtual. And I have to say, it's been super fun to do this. I need to say some thank yous right now. I really need to say thank you to the staff of the Columbia Memorial Space Center. They are absolutely the best coworkers to be with every day. They are some of the most dedicated, talented, creative people I've ever worked with, and it's a privilege for me to be there. I really want to take a big shout out, or give a big shout out to Angelica, Monica, Marissa, David, Sarah, Rick, Anitra, Dorian, Jared, basically our whole staff I have to shout out to, but everybody pivoted to make today possible, and I just cannot thank you all enough. So those of you out there watching from YouTube, I hope that you're clapping really hard for the staff of the Space Center. I also want to thank all of you for watching us today, and for all of you who built a rocket and who participated. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, be friends with us on social media. We're doing these things more and more. We have a huge event coming up in October called City of STEM. That's going to be another big virtual multi-day thing, so be on the lookout for that. We'll have over 100 different partners coming in giving talks, and you'll be able to see all kinds of demos and hands-on activities. Thank you so much to our guests today. I want to thank our sponsor, Financial Partners Credit Union. Their consistent support of Rocket Fever has enabled us to grow to what it is today. And I can't thank you enough. It also has allowed us to send over 700 rockets to kids all around Southern California. And for that, I also want to thank Estes for being so great about sending those rockets. When we reached out to Estes, they were like, we said, hey, do you think that you could just send free rockets to kids in Southern California? And they're like, sure, yeah, let's do it. So thank you so much to Estes for that. I want to thank our Girls in STEM Club for all of their hard work and all of the demos. And I want to thank the City of Downey. The City of Downey supports the Space Center. We are an arm of the City of Downey. We're a municipal museum, and I want to thank the city for supporting us. I want to thank Mayor Blanca Pacheco, the mayor of Downey, for not only welcoming us, but also for consistently supporting the Space Center. I want to thank Nader Magadam, the CEO of Financial Partners Credit Union, our sponsor. I want to thank LA Mayor Garcetti, the Science Gal, and Athena for being our celebrity guests shout outs today. Like I said, I can't thank everybody out there enough for all of this. It's been great to talk to you guys today. I think that's it for Rocket Fever 2020. Thank you very much, everybody. See you next year, whether on YouTube or in real life or both, maybe. I am Ben. I've been your host, and really thank you so much for making today a great day. Take care.